Hi everyone, my name is Rui, and in this video we're going to be focusing on element connection settings. Settings that pertain to the way how DataMiner System communicates with the devices. So let's get into it. This is a simple IRD being used on a satellite downlink. When you create, edit, or duplicate an element like this one, this is the wizard you'll see. The Edit tab is the most important tab and is where we'll be focusing today. The general and device sections were already covered in another video where we showcased how to create and delete an element. In this section below are the settings that define how the DMA will talk to your devices. Those settings will depend on the selected protocol. When you connect a device via serial port, you need to complete the remaining settings that show up below, like port, baud rate, data bits, stop bits, parity, and so on. Depending on the protocol, some settings can be omitted. For example, you're only allowed to use TCP but not UDP. If there's a bus address involved, which is clearly not the case, but if it was, that would need to be also provided. Bus addresses can usually be found on the physical devices and can be subject to format or range restrictions too. Protocols could also require multiple ports, like for example separate ports to send and receive data, even over different transport protocols maybe. You can connect to serial devices via Ethernet. So, when you select TCP or UDP option, you'll see different settings. Here's the IP address of the product itself, or could also be the address of a serial gateway. In that case, all the settings we've seen before, baud rate, parity, and so on, would need to be configured in the serial gateway instead. This is the IP port which the DMA has to use to talk to the product. If you're using a serial gateway, this port will typically correspond to a real serial port on that unit. In the network field, you can specify which network interface, first or second, the DMA should use to talk to the device. On auto, the DMA will decide that for you. These fields below network pertain to timeout settings. And further below we have an entire section for advanced settings. But because I'd like to focus this video on connection protocols, I'll be covering these additional settings in a separate video. You can of course use HTTP to talk not just to devices and products, but also web APIs, RESTful enabled apps, my favorite cloud-hosted resources, and much more. On this system, I can show you with keeping an eye on multiple Azure resources, Cosmos DB databases and their underlying data, application gateway for traffic load balancing and its traffic and performance statistics, Kubernetes service, there's only one cluster here though. In the Element wizard, under HTTP connection settings, you will notice familiar fields, set to TCP, the Azure Management Endpoint, port 443 for secure HTTPS, and again, let the DMA decide which network interface to use. On this system, the Copenhagen view displays aggregated quality and experience statistics. There are a bunch of optical line terminals under this view, and this is one of them. This is an SNMP device. SNMP elements will use version 1, 2, or 3, depending on which one is supported, and you can actually pick a different SNMP version than the one configured by the protocol. Here's the IP address of the device, and this section contains specific SNMP settings. You'll recognize the network field, as we've seen before, lets you specify whether the product is accessible through the first or second network interface of the DMA, and auto will let the DMA decide. Port is set to the SNMP default, port 161. You can of course change that if needed. And finally, you got the get and set community strings necessary to perform requests to the SNMP agent. This is because we are on SNMP version 2. On version 3, we'll have to provide username, password, and encryption key instead. You could actually autofill managed credentials here if you'd have the credential library enabled. We don't have that enabled at the moment, but I'll address that in a different video, so stay tuned for that. As I said before, I had to skip some of the displayed settings I'm gonna cover those on the next video, and I'll be linking that one below. For now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to visit our Open Dojo community for complete material on DataMiner features, demos, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one.